I'm sorry. I'm the worst. Yeah. Welcome to Stargatezing, a Stargate gazing podcast. I'm your host, Kathy.
And I'm your other host, Mary.
And every other week, we discuss an episode of Stargate, beginning with Stargate SG-1.
Woo! I'm starting to feel like this episode is
It
cursed.
kind of is. We might just call it
Yeah.
the cursed episode.
I know. Should we mention all of the reasons why we're feeling like this is a cursed episode? Well, for starters, we're recording this in January. And the day we were initially supposed to record it was the day that the Capitol was attacked. So that was good times.
That was so good.
And then we were going to record it the next day, and a very dear family member of mine passed away, so that sucked also.
And then we tried the following week.
We did.
And
then my audio just went completely haywire for I have no idea what reason.
Yeah.
So I just got angry and gave up.
And you know what? That was for the best, I think. So
yeah. Because I was still not feeling great from previous events, and just the audio issues just were making it that much worse. And now this is our second attempt today, because the first attempt was also not working.
And hopefully the second attempt sounds fine.
25th time is the charm.
Yes.
Right?
Well, the king said it was daft to build a castle on a swamp, but I built it all the same. It sank into the swamp. I built a second one. That sank into the swamp. So I built a third one. That burned down, fell over, then sank into the swamp. But the fourth one stayed up.
It's fine. I definitely haven't watched this episode like 3 times now.
Well, you're doing better than I am, because I've watched it over 2 different settings, or over 2 different sittings, and the first one was like right after my uncle had passed, and I was not in a very good mood, and then I didn't finish it until like a week later. So you'll probably be more on top of things than I will be.
Maybe. I didn't, fix any of my notes from the last time, so I'll still be like, I think this is what happened, but maybe you should check for me first. Am I saying this wrong? Probably. That's fine. Everything's fine. The only new thing I did, I was like, I wonder if I can find out any information on the actor cat that played Schrodinger, but I found nothing, which has made me sad. So I didn't even need to tell you that.
Yeah. Now I've just got my hopes up for nothing.
I'm also a monster.
Thanks for that. Just adding more disappointment to my life. Thanks, Kathy.
That's kind of my tagline, adding disappointment to life. That actually should be my new Twitter bio, I think.
You really should. Yes.
Yay.
Well, yeah. Hopefully those various issues are in the past, and hopefully we've got the audio thing straightened out, and once I move tomorrow, I'll have a better recording space, so hopefully that will help. And yeah, of course, we're dealing with moving. Jeff and I are dealing with moving. Kathy's not moving with us because we have lived together in the past, but that was a long time ago.
It would be weird if I up and decided to move in with you.
It would be weird if you randomly decided to bring all your cats into our dog and cat menagerie and then just randomly joined us, and it'd be a chaotic mess.
Agreed.
Mostly because Coconut would just constantly be chasing cats all over the place.
That would kind of be funny. Except for my very old cats, who would be very, very terrified.
Yeah, my cat is also very old.
I think
I tend to forget that because she acts like a much younger cat, but she's like 15.
Yeah, mine too. Oh, old kitties. Although Pepper wouldn't move, she would actually just growl and growl at Coconut, I think, because she doesn't like scatter.
Probably better than what Potato does. Potato runs around and like acts like prey rather than just standing her ground. Like the rare occasion she stands her ground and just like swats Coconut in the face, Coconut will back down. But no, most of the time she'll just go and run out of the room, and then Coconut's like, "Yay, we're playing!"
Wow!
And then she gets all excited and just wants to keep chasing Potato everywhere. Because yes, I realize I'm victim blaming the cat.
I mean, cats are often instigators of things that don't turn out their way in the end, so
Yeah. Potato is a big instigator of
Yeah.
annoyingness in general, especially now that we're moving. Did I tell you that like during the job interview, which I actually did end up getting the job anyway, thankfully, but in the middle of my job interview, she started playing in all of the boxes and making a ton of noise right in time for me to do my demo lesson for the people that I was on a
Oh
Zoom call with.
no.
Yeah, it was good times. I mean, like I said, thankfully I got it anyway, but I was pretty sure that they're like, well, what kind of shit show is
Well,
happening over there? We can't hire her.
my coworker was on the other side of the wall today at work, and he was rustling through some, I guess we had bubble wrap down there or something. But when I can't see a noise like that, I assume it's a cat. Like, that's my default. I didn't assume it was a cat really because I was at work, but I was like, it raised my like cat hackles. Like, what are they into? What's he doing? Why?
The really creepy thing that happens in this house is that I will hear weird noises and be like, what is the cat or what is the dog doing? And then I'll realize that the cat and the dogs are both sitting with me and Jeff won't be home. And I'll be like, yep, that's totally normal that I'm hearing cabinets open in other rooms and then close again on their own. Not at all freaky.
No.
What's that rustling in the attic? Who knows?
That's
Weird.
creepy.
Yep. This house is
Yep.
creepy.
But
One of many reasons why we're
yeah,
glad to be
you're gonna
moving
be out of
on.
here, so it's fine. Yeah.
Yep, one more night.
Woohoo!
So should we talk about this episode now and hopefully finally put this
I
curse
hope
to rest?
so, and hopefully everything is all good. So this one that we are talking about today, this episode of Stargate SG-1, Season 1, Episode 17, is called Enigma.
I can't help but think about Mr. Enigma from Batman Forever, which I used to
I
love
was
that
also
movie.
thinking about him.
Riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's afraid of the big black bat?
Bring on Tommy Lee Jones. There was no Tommy Lee Jones, which was sad.
No, there was no Tommy Lee Jones in this episode.
or Jim Carrey or Val Kilmer for that
No,
matter.
the whole crew just abandoned this episode. I think I heard they were all signed on as guest stars.
Would have made sense. Would have totally made sense.
This episode needed Jim Carrey in a giant onesie, so
Absolutely. Yeah. So to start, we had nothing to do with Batman, and the end. That's really all that's worth saying about the episode.
Oh, but there's a kitty and there's a jerk and who in the end turns out to have good reason for being a jerk. Yes, a non-O'Neill jerk indeed. Yes. There's very little Teal'c in this episode, huh? I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, not really a whole lot.
He's just kind of there.
More Teal'c.
So we're on a planet.
No way, a planet.
I know, a planet. Who?
Imagine starting a new episode of this on a planet.
A non-Earth planet.
Wow.
And I can tell it's not an Earth planet because Earth is not covered in volcanoes currently that are erupting and destroying the planet. Currently.
No, not currently. Currently, yes.
So we're on this planet. There are volcanoes in the background doing volcano things. There's a lot of ash in the air.
It really made me laugh when Daniel's like, what is this stuff in the air? There's volcanoes in the background. What do you think it is?
No.
So Teal'c is just like, ash.
What's this stuff in the air? Ash.
So the team comes through the gate and they're on the planet. Surprise. And Carter observes that this volcanoing wasn't happening when they sent the probe through.
So how long was it since they sent the probe through before they actually came through? Because like the volcanoes look to be way off in the distance, and so if they're this far away where they're getting like a bunch of ash and none of this was happening before, like for that ash to have traveled this far, you have to have had a fair amount of time pass.
Yeah.
So like, do they just send the malp through and then like wait a couple days and send them through, or even like a couple hours? I would think would be too
Maybe.
long.
I always got the impression they like go right after, like, hey, it looks good, gung ho, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense, but that clearly wasn't the case
No.
here, because you can't go from no volcano, good air, to volcano, ash, and people dying on the
Yeah.
ground by the gate, as we're about to find.
The team says, "This is no good. Let's leave." And Daniel then spots something. Goes over and checks it out, and they find people laying in the ash, under the ash. Ash more falling on them. That is more ash is falling on them at every moment. Some of them are alive, but some are dead. Daniel observes that, like Pompeii, they all suffocated before the lava started flowing.
Which isn't really what happened, because they kind of were more, like, incinerated by hot air rather than suffocating, they think, but I don't know, maybe the theory was different back when this was
Or maybe
recorded.
Daniel just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Maybe Daniel doesn't know what he's talking about, yeah. I think that, well, we've already seen that is
Right.
often the case.
As they're dusting off people to check whether or not they're dead or alive, they see some like copper boxes. I'm gonna call them coxes. Is that what we just said?
Cactuses? I think cactus
Coxes.
is good.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
portmanteau.
But they're on the people's arms. They don't know what they are. Maybe we'll find out. Jack asks Sam how long they have left on the planet before the volcano goes real bad. Kablooey, lava-y. And Sam says she does not know because she is not a volcanologist. And this brings the number of things that Sam doesn't know to 2.
Oh, the one branch of science, the second branch of science she doesn't know, the first one being midwifery.
Yes. She can't deliver a baby, and she can't tell you when that volcano's gonna blow. Everything else, though, on the table.
At least she admits her limits. Yeah, everything else is fine.
It's true, unlike blithely saying random shit like Daniel. He's not saying random shit, that's terrible, but some guy laying in the ash, one of the
Some
people
guy.
who is not dead, a survivor, we'll call him. He opened his eyes and lifts his head up and just long enough to get a glimpse of Sam before he falls back to sleep.
I'm glad you specified it was one of the people who wasn't dead that did that. I really wouldn't have been sure for a second there.
Hey, this is an alien planet. You never know.
Fair.
Sam leans down to check another guy, and he grabs her. And he's like, "Don't
Help us.
And Sam gets big eyes, and he, goes unconscious. That's a word. That's how you say that. And his "don't help us" is a little ambiguous, I think, because he could be saying "don't" and then doesn't finish what he doesn't want them to do, and then is like "help us," or he could be like "don't help us." Don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all whether or not there's like an ellipsis or a comma in there between the "don't help us" and, there doesn't necessarily. If there's no punctuation there, then that obviously means something very different.
And I guess we will find out probably very shortly. Yeah.
Probably. I would bet after the credits, we'll find out. Because after the credits, despite what the guy said, they're bringing survivors back through the gate. So they're helping some of them hobble along, and then there are people bringing stretchers in, and then Hammond comes in and asks SG1 what happened. And O'Neill says that they encountered some severe volcanic activity. And Hammond's like, who are all these people? He runs the base. Wouldn't he have wanted to know that before they brought anyone back?
You
Like,
would think
shouldn't he
so.
already know who these people are?
He was probably taking a
Yeah.
nap or something.
But
and
no, I guess he
He
didn't.
was like, "Wake me up when they get here."
Yeah. Right. So Sam says that they don't actually know like who the people are, like what race of people they are, but that they were just laying around the gate and that the air was getting toxic. So they had to bring everybody back through.
Too hot.
And also hot.
Hot! Too hot!
Extremely hot and toxic. Hammond sends them all out to Hammond sends them all to go get checked by Dr. Fraser in light of the toxic hot air, and says that they can wait and do their debriefing after they've all gotten the all clear from her.
Sounds reasonable.
Yep.
So next we're in the conference room, and we start this scene through a water jug, which was kind of a fun transition opening of that scene. I liked it.
Didn't notice.
I only noticed it the first time and then didn't pay attention the second two, so because that's how I do. Hammond is recapping that they've rescued 10 people who are all human, and they seem to be all right.
Gotta tell you, if I was getting this news, I don't know that I'd take it this well.
But you said he was all right.
Yes, he's lost his left hand, so he's going to be all right.
You son of a bitch! I hate this!
So he offers them a hearty congratulations on the rescue. He then asks if there were not any buildings in the area when they were on the planet, and they tell him that they were trying to make it back to the Stargate and weren't really concerned with their surroundings that much. Hammond asks about the device on the arm, and they say that it was emitting low levels of radiation. These are the things they found out, not that they just intuited looking at them.
The Coxes, right?
The Coxes, yes, these are the Coxes we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
There are no moving parts or circuitry. There was another thing, I don't think I wrote it down, but I think you did last time. You told me. Chips, and it has no chips.
No chips.
So they got no clue what it is or what it does. Daniel says that he thought that they were a parallel culture to theirs, but actually they might be way ahead of them technologically, given they have these mystery Coxes. And Hammond's like, but aren't they humans, and didn't all humans come from Earth? And Daniel says, we'd be colonizing space right now if it hadn't been for the Dark Ages. 800 years where science was heresy. 800 years where science was heresy and anathema. And Daniel is wrong.
Yes,
He's
he is.
Just totally wrong. Like, first he's Eurocentric, but then he's also wrong about Europe.
Right.
So,
because there was a lot of stuff happening elsewhere, not in Europe. I mean, like, yeah, we probably would be at least somewhat farther along, but there were a lot of things happening in other places that weren't Europe.
It's true.
Even during the period of time that he was referring to.
I have a lot of
being the Middle Ages.
Yeah, I have a lot of confidence that humans are very good at getting in their own way about things, and we would have no problems not progressing.
Yeah.
Whether or not we had 800 years of Dark Ages, which we didn't, Daniel. So basically with the Dark Ages, some people were referring to a lack of written record, and others were sort of making it more of sort of a judgment on them, and it depended on who was saying it and what their time period was like. But even by the time this TV show was on, historians had moved away from the use of the Dark Ages, because it's such a pejorative term and also not accurate. And there were some places that sometimes experienced something somewhat like a Dark Age, but it certainly wasn't all of Europe or the whole world for 800 years.
800 years, everything was on pause now.
Yeah, no. God. Maybe be quiet, Daniel. Or only talk about Egypt. I don't know. Anyway. So then an airwoman enters and tells Hammond that the leader of the rescued people would like to have a talk with him and the SG team. So they go.
They do go to the infirmary. And SG1 and Hammond come in, and they're directed over to the leader guy, who spitefully rips off his oxygen mask and asks who they are. And they introduce themselves, and he asks where they are. Hammond says that you're on Earth, and these people saved you. And the spiteful leader's like, well, nothing could be further from the truth. Which doesn't really make any sense. Like, I mean, like, I know later we learn more about this guy, but like, they clearly did actually just save you because half your people died. So.
True, that is true.
So probably you would have also died too.
Yep.
And that's pretty much what Daniel's reaction was too, actually. He's like, I'm pretty sure you're better off here. And the spiteful leader guy is like, well, there was a rescue transport on the way, but SG1's arguing that half the people were already dead, and it wasn't likely that it would have gotten there on time. And the guy is like, that's more of a problem for you than it is for us, which didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but whatever. He starts talking about how he finds it hard to believe that a culture as primitive as Earth could have been using the gate system anyway, and so doesn't really even know what SG1 was doing there in the first place.
Rude.
And so, yes, everyone's quite insulted by that, obviously. And Teal'c feels it worth mentioning that his planet is very different from Earth, but that on Earth life is very valued. And the spiteful leader guy is like, well, that's quite a statement coming from a Jaffa. And Hammond's like, well, who the hell are you? And so the spiteful leader tells him that his name is Omoc, so he does actually get a name.
Woohoo!
And their planet is called Tollan, and they're the Tollan people also. It seems to be that the planet and the people have the same name.
That's nice. Makes it easy.
Yeah. And Hammond asks if he knows what he knows about the hagfish and the Jaffa, and Omoc says that they're aware of them, but they don't interact with them. And Hammond's like, well, then we have a common enemy. But Omoc's like, well, I didn't say that they're our enemy. We just don't interact with them. Did I mention an enemy? So yeah, that seemed like I was actually kind of laughing about that too, because like that was a weird leap. If he just said that they don't interact with them, saying, okay, we have a common enemy then seemed like a bit of a leap.
Must be nice for the Tollan, though.
Yes. Yeah, really. Well, and so Hammond just kind of tries to cover by saying that it might be beneficial to be friends. But Omoc says that they should just be allowed to go, and he wants everything back that has been taken from them. And Daniel tries to explain that it'll be a while before the volcanoes die down, so it's not safe for them to go back to their planet right now, and there's not really anywhere else for them to go. And says that he would love to learn more about the Tollan culture, but Omoc says that he has said enough, and he will say no more. And then as they all leave, Sam shares a quite meaningful look with some random dude across the room, who also seems to be one of
the random dudes who look. My God.
Random dudes looking.
So in the hallway, Hammond tells them to monitor the situation on Tollan, and he wants these people gone as soon as it's safe, because Omoc hurt his feels and doesn't want to be Hammond's friend.
So sad for him.
It is very sad. Then in the gate room, Sam is tinkering with a UAV. Something about the heat sensor, I see.
She added a heat sensor to it.
Oh, sorry. Yes. She added a heat sensor.
Yes.
Which, again, this is another talent of hers, to just go add things to expensive military equipment. More talents. She is talented.
Theoretical physicist.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess heat sensors do actually relate to physics, so.
I suppose so. Daniel comes in with coffee or something, and I'm not sure why he's allowed to have liquids near fancy military equipment, but
that is a good point.
He is, so we'll go with that. Daniel has been asking questions among the Tollan, but they will not give up anything information-wise to him. I don't know if they've given up other things. Like, he's like, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Oh, well.
I'm sure Daniel tried to ask for one of the Coxes too, but maybe they probably didn't give that to him either.
Likely not.
No. Well, anyway, he asks questions. They give no answers. And he said, one of the Tollan has been particularly interested in asking about Sam. And Hammond wants to see Sam because he thinks perhaps she will have better luck than Daniel. So she drops everything and runs off to Hammond. She probably didn't run.
I didn't see her run.
She left to go see Hammond.
She finds him out in the hallway, and he tells her that he hopes that the guy will open up to her more than the others, meaning Daniel. As far as we know, he's the only one that's also tried talking to them. So they go into the infirmary, and the guy from before, the one that gave her the meaningful look, is sitting there. And apparently his name is Narim. And Hammond's like, "You remember him, right?" And Sam's like, "Yes, from the planet," which I would think would go without saying.
Did I see you at Starbucks last week?
Yeah. Right? Weren't you at the grocery store the other day? What are you doing here in this top secret facility? But she mentioned you were a lot dirtier then, which is also pretty rude. So first she says something dumb and then she says something rude. Good job, Carter. So Nareem's like, Captain Carter? Or is it Doctor? And as you and I, Kathy, have already established, it should be Captain Doctor Samantha Dr. Carter.
Exactly.
But Sam says that he can just call her Samantha. So Hammond tells Nareem that Carter is very interested in their planet, and perhaps Sam can take him up to the surface to have a look around. And Nareem promises to behave himself if he is allowed to do that.
So Sam and Nareem step outside somewhere. There's a little entrance. It's not the main entrance that you see
Yeah,
in
it's
every
like some random
yeah.
side door.
Yeah. So they go outside and Nareem tells her he is glad to be alive and so are the others and thanks her and tell your friends. Which is nice because it was a little bit hard to tell whether or not people were glad to be alive based on Omoc's reaction. So
Yeah, a little ungrateful.
yeah. So Nareem is already nicer, more diplomatic.
Yeah.
So Nareem says he's not supposed to be talking to her. They're not supposed to be talking to anyone. And then he goes on to explain how he thought Sam was whatever their planet's version of an angel was. Sherman. When he saw her. Because she's beautiful.
So beautiful. Everyone loves Carter.
I mean, she is gorgeous.
She is, actually.
Yeah. And very smart. So, yeah.
But I think I remember that being a common theme that like pretty much everyone falls in love with Sam at some point.
Why not? But he learns not only that she was beautiful, but from Daniel that she's a brilliant scientist.
He was very impressed by that.
They start to attempt a conversation, hopefully that would lead to maybe information sharing. So he says he's very curious about Earth, and she's like, Omoc doesn't share that quality. But then he's suddenly distracted by an eagle in the sky.
Of the people, by the people, for the people, eagle! Ah!
Oh, flying animal. Sam explains that we call them birds, and that there are, in fact, millions of animals on Earth, which is a big thing for Nareem because there have not been animals on Tollan for generations.
I guess they're all vegetarians?
I was wondering, I guess so. I mean, they're pretty advanced. They might just eat, like, nutrition pills or something. They're all on the, what's that stuff called? The Soylent diet.
Soylent. Have you ever tried that stuff? I tried it a while back.
I haven't. I know other people who have, but I don't like drinking things. I like drinking things. That makes no sense. I don't like drinking my meals because I don't find it satisfactory.
Yeah, it wasn't all that filling.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. It doesn't taste like much of anything, which is kind of the point. But it actually tastes a little bit like Play-Doh, which is kind of off-putting.
Ooh. Eee. No thank you. I don't even like the smell of Play-Doh.
Yeah, I don't either.
So Sam offers to show him some pictures of animals, but don't tell Omoc. And Nareem says he's just trying to protect everyone. And then he's a little bit cagey as he spots two military guys that were probably there the whole time. And says, we should go back in. Clammed up real quick for no reason.
He did. Back inside, in the gate room, they're dialing out. There are science people all over, which you can always tell because they're all wearing lab coats. Prepping the UAV that Sam had been working on before. And up in the control room, Sam is counting down to lunch, getting ready to send it through. And once they've sent it through, they realize that the planet is now completely uninhabitable. Things have not gotten any better since they left. Things have actually gotten a lot worse. The temperatures are even more extreme, and the atmosphere is pyroclastic, as they describe it. And O'Neill asks how long it'll be before it cools, and Sam's like, well, it's not going to be anytime soon, but it probably doesn't matter anyway because the lava is heading right for the gate and will be buried within a couple days. So it is pretty much impossible for them to go back to their home planet at this point, ever.
Uh-oh. So they deliver the bad news to Omoc, and he says, "Nature succeeded where we have failed." It turns out the Tollans were actually the people who were there left over were going to seal the gate. And he explains that Tollan was a world in cataclysm. Clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And that everyone else had already left and his team stayed behind to close the Stargate, so no one else could return and be harmed. The Tollans have found a new world outside the gate system, so they're gonna need a ship, guys. And Daniel's like, we don't have ships like that. Our space program, Seb says, is a relatively new. Oopsie. What's gonna happen now?
Omoc looks pretty displeased to learn that.
He's having a bad day,
To
that
say the
Omoc.
least.
Yeah.
Yes, hard to be Omoc.
It is. But don't worry, he will take it out on you.
Absolutely. So the survivors are refugees now, and in the meeting room, they are trying to figure out what to do with them and where to send them because they don't want to be there on Earth. They need to be sent somewhere. O'Neill suggests that they call on some of their friends that they've made on other planets, and Hammond tells Jack and Teal'c to work on that. And Sam and Daniel are told that they need to prep an area to be basically a refugee camp for the Tollan. And then a little while later, in that bunker that has been turned into a refugee camp, Hammond and Omoc are talking, and Hammond is telling them that they're going to be returning all of their devices as an act of good faith. And Omoc says, well, they're not weapons anyway, so screw your act of good faith, basically. And Hammond says that, yeah, we figured that out because we had them tested. And then Omoc is pretty insulted by that because, like, oh, you didn't trust us. You had them tested. That's not good faith. And Daniel's like, well, we couldn't figure out what they were, so all of this is irrelevant. So they try to assure Omoc that they're trying to do everything they can to find a new home for them. And Omoc wants to know if they have any say in the matter. And Daniel's like, yes, self-determination is a concept that's very important to us. And I wrote down the exact quote because I was like, who talks like that?
Just Daniel.
It just struck me as a weird, unnatural way of speaking.
Yeah.
So it's made clear that they're trying to make the Tollan as comfortable as possible, and they're doing their very best to try to find a new home for the Tollan. And Omoc asks if they are prisoners, and Hammond says that they're not prisoners, but they are from an alien environment, and so the fact that they're being kept in this bunker is just as much for the protection of the Tollan as it is for the protection of the people on Earth.
I have two things to say. Yeah. One, did you see at the end of that scene where they just have this long shot of Daniel just staring? That's how the scene ended.
They had a lot of time too, actually. I made notes of a couple other scenes that ended that way. It was weird.
What is this happening? And my second thing is their welcome to Earth meal is bottled water, a fruit basket, and a pile of sandwiches.
I do like sandwiches, though.
Sandwiches are fine, but I don't know. Maybe give them a hot meal. They just came from... Although maybe they don't want a hot meal because they were just on a really hot planet. And that just might bring up bad memories.
Could be.
Fruit. I'm just kidding. I like fruit. Some fruit.
Fruit is...
Yeah. Fruit's fine.
It's better when it's covered in chocolate.
Most things are. I think. Actually, most things aren't. Many foods are. I guess.
Yeah.
It's important to be that specific about it.
True. My microphone here being covered in chocolate would not be helpful.
That would be weird. I'd have questions.
And it would be unusable and inedible, so.
Yeah. There'd be no good to come from chocolate-covered microphones.
No.
We're still in the refugee center, but I think a little later. Sam goes to see Narim, check on him, see how he's doing. And Narim is baffled by sheets.
Yeah.
Because apparently their beds just adapt to their optimal temperature.
Well, la-ti-da.
Or the air is, I'm sorry. And the air does too. Which I would still want a sheet. It's very comforting.
Even in summer when it's hot, I still like to have at least a sheet
Yeah,
on.
it's nice.
It is.
Narim doesn't know what he's missing. Sam offers to show him how to use sheets, and then she also gives him some books.
She only means in the platonic way, though, not the fun way.
Yes. Although Narim clearly would enjoy...
Narim clearly would enjoy the other way.
Yes. He gives her a long look and a thank you for those books. Sam then surprises him with a ginger cat named Schrodinger.
Can tell you from experience, not a good surprise. Our ginger cat was a surprise. It hasn't ended up with us because she's just a jerk. As I have already referenced.
Yeah, I had questions. So first of all, where did she get this cat? I think that so when I was tootling around online at some point, I guess most people are under the impression that it was her cat.
Oh, weird.
Which it didn't even occur to me that would be her cat. Why would she just give away her cat? That's weird. But also, so is giving some random guy a cat. So maybe. But so I don't know where she got that cat. It could be her cat, but she could have just found a cat. Did she go adopt a cat to give away to somebody from not Earth? I don't know.
All good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you, like, when you're filling out the adoption paperwork, some of that's pretty lengthy and involved. How do you tell them, I'm giving this to a non-Earth person?
Yeah.
I can't imagine that would fly with the adoption committee at whatever, well, assuming that it was from a rescue. I can't imagine that would go over very well.
Yeah. Maybe adoptions were easier in the late 90s. I don't know.
Or maybe she just bought it from Craigslist.
Maybe
Craigslist a thing yet then?
I don't know. Maybe she found it outside. Although she found a cat outside and just gave it away, she found the best cat outside because this cat is super docile and gives them no problems throughout this episode.
Super chill.
Yeah.
Pretty cute. I'd rather have this cat than my own cat, I think.
Aw, poor Potato. She has so many toes though, and she's very cute, and she always likes when I pet her.
She does like to be pet.
Yeah.
Usually. Except for when she tries to bite my hand.
Yeah, that's not great.
Often. I'd say about 50% of the time that I try to pet her, I get my hand swatted and bitten.
Oh, that's
with
upsetting.
All 25 toes.
Boo. Oh, that's is that extra claws too? With the extra toe? Does she have extra claws with her extra toes?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an extra claw on every extra toe.
Excellent. That's always fun.
Yeah.
A claw in every toe. Just like a chicken in every pot or whatever that.
Chicken in every pot, claw in every toe. The ideal economy.
Yeah. So Sam gives him this cat named Schrodinger. Yes. And she's like, his name's a joke. Ha ha ha. Schrodinger's cat. Don't you get it? Yeah. No, he doesn't get it because he's from a different planet. So she explains the concept basically of Schrodinger's cat. And Narim gets it and he calls it equilibrium physics. Sam's like, we call it quantum physics. And he says, yes, we studied this among many misconceptions of elementary science.
She looks so disheartened.
I know. Although she goes, you're telling me you lick quantum physics, which sounds a little impressed. So she gets over that pretty quick.
But she doesn't like hearing it referred to as elementary science.
No. Yeah. So they're interrupted though. Omoc comes up and looks at Narim with the cat. Sam makes an exit, so she'll be back later to help him with his sheets.
He's just creeping up too, like he's slowly like the way they shot it I thought was pretty funny because like Narim and Sam on either side of the screen, and then Omoc just slowly comes creeping up behind them. Slowly comes creeping up like in between them in the shot, but behind them where they don't see him. It was funny.
Narim promises Omoc, I didn't tell her anything, and Omoc just stares and looks grumpy because that's Omoc.
Indeed. In the meeting room, O'Neill mentions that they have meetings set up with another planet in the morning, and Teal'c says that they have many other planets that are eager to help as well, if that doesn't work out. And Hammond comes in and says that the refugees have escaped. Oh my goodness! I would expect nothing less of a base where Hammond is in charge of things.
They gave them back their devices, even though they didn't know what they were. Okay.
That is it. Outside, there are search teams with search puppies running around, and the dogs are very cute, and that delighted me. And it's nighttime, and they find the Tollan, who are all just standing around, hanging out. Omoc comes forward and says that they were just observing the stars. And Jack tells them, well, it's time to come in then. And Omoc angrily says, like, so we are prisoners.
Yes, Omoc, you are obviously prisoners. Get out while you can.
I mean, they already told them that they can't go outside for everyone's safety involved. So why is Omoc... It's just... I thought it was a dumb reaction. Like, they'd already been told they needed to stay there for their safety and everyone else's safety. So why is he surprised that they're upset that they went out?
I feel like it's like his moral superiority. Gotcha. Like,
yeah.
I knew it. I knew this about you and confirmed. Gotcha.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. You're very clever, Omoc. Good job. Yeah. Back inside, they're talking about whether or not anyone is able to figure out how the Tollan got past the guards. And Hammond says that, well, the security cameras all happened to glitch out at the same time. And so nothing was caught on any of the cameras to show them what happened. And they're trying to fix the issue, and they're trying to see if they can get anything from the videos. But in the meantime, they need to go and meet with some foreign dignitaries. So they had been in Hammond's office, and they leave there to go into the meeting room. And leader guy from the Land of Light is there, who I still don't remember if we ever got his name.
They say it in this episode. It's Teal'c.
Ah, okay, thank you. So Teal'c is there and tells Omoc that the Land of Light is this wondrous place that would love to have the Tollan. And Omoc is a jerk to him and very insulting when he talks about how these people are even more primitive than you. And needless to say, Teal'c is quite angry that not only is his politeness and telling him the wonders of his planet snubbed, but they're now being called primitive. And there are angry faces all around.
Omoc is the worst.
Omoc is the worst.
The worst.
Yeah.
Back in the refugee room, Sam and Narim are hanging out with the Schrodinger. Narim pats the cat. Sam is wondering why Omoc is so obstinate, so Narim tells her a little backstory about why Omoc is so grumpy and unwilling to be nice or anything. But really, they
be polite at least, maybe.
So they're like, we refuse to share technology or goodwill. So anyway, they said the Tollans had figured out in the past how to explore space, and they were excited because they got to go to their neighboring planet called Sarita. They don't specify who populated Sarita. Was it more humans? Was it someone else? We don't find out. I just thought that was curious.
Yeah.
But anyway, Sarita was, I think it sounds like they were kind of on par with Earth as far as technology goes. Yeah. So being good neighbors, they gave them a device of unlimited productive energy. And the Saritans, or whatever their name is on that planet, used it to make war. A tale as old as time.
True as it can be.
So they destroyed themselves within a day of getting this, which is really impressive. Those are some productive people.
Absolutely. Or really good weapons, or both.
Yeah. And apparently this destruction was so bad that not only did it destroy their planet, it shifted the orbit of Tollan just enough to make their world unstable and eventually get destroyed.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit afraid now to trust people with their technology because they don't want that to happen again.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Sam asks what they were doing outside, and he says, I promise we actually were just studying the stars, and that the distance between Earth and their new homeworld is very far away. It would take more than a lifetime to get there by ship. So Sam's like, have you thought about staying on Earth? And he would stay to spend more time with Sam. Just kidding. I mean, I want to spend time with Schrodinger. Ha ha ha. Wah, wah. Anyway, Narim has it bad for Sam.
He does.
He does.
They're still in the refugee bunk a little while later. Omoc is talking to SG1 and says that their escape, their pseudo escape, was a test, and everyone reacted exactly as the Tollan had thought they would, and they use threat and force to solve any problems, because I think that the guys that were I think the search team also had weapons on them, which I didn't mention before. And Sam's like, well, you didn't really give us any choice. And Omoc says you could have come for us unarmed. So yes, they did actually have weapons. Jack says, well, you haven't really given us any reason to trust you now, have you? They continue to argue that Omoc should give his people the choice of where they want to go rather than just deciding for them where everybody is going to be settling. And Omoc argues that, well, you're only trying to help us because what you really want is our technology. And Jack is continuing to try to figure out how they all got out of the bunker and outside in the first place. And Omoc basically just says that they don't need to know, and all that really matters is that if they really wanted to, they could do it again. You would think that they would take away those coxes at some point.
No kidding.
Yeah. It's pretty clear that they are using some technology to help them, so maybe take away that technology, but no, they don't.
No.
And at this point, the same random lady from before comes in to say that Hammond wants to see SG1. And
because that is her only job, is to deliver messages like that from one person to another.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Should have radios. It would save her a lot of work.
Yeah, no kidding. The team have gathered because the surveillance video has been computer enhanced, and they get to see how the Tollans escaped, and they're not gonna believe it.
What?
So on the screen we see that the Tollan just walk through the wall. And that's how they escaped, which is pretty impressive. Jack says that's pretty cool. Daniel is like, impossible. And Sam's like, only from the perspective of our limited science. And Teal'c says this is knowledge beyond the gold.
Yeah. So that makes it pretty impressive.
Yeah. Then a man comes up behind them and says, that's what the president and the Joint Chiefs want to hear. It's another military guy in his dress uniforms. He salutes Hammond and introduces himself as Colonel Mayborn of the NID, a fictional branch of the government. And they have a little snark between O'Neill and Mayborn, of course.
Of course.
Mayborn says Jack's attitude won't prevail with him, and Hammond wants to know why he's there. Good question. Again,
you've known that this other dignitary or this other fairly high-ranking official was on his way?
Yeah, and how does he gain entrance without somebody granting that permission?
Well, yeah, exactly. That's why he should have known that this person was on the way, because he's from a different branch. This is top secret. How does he get permission if Hammond hasn't been told and granted that permission?
And even if he's been, granted permission to be in the Stargate, in the mountain, someone should have notified Hammond that they were there. And this is, yep. Maybe he found another secret entrance in the forest and just snuck in that way.
It's possible. Mayborn doesn't actually even say why he's there. He's just basically like, didn't you get the memo?
And you can tell he's going to be real fun for SG1.
A little while later in the meeting room, Mayborn hands Hammond a file and says that they are to release the Tollan to his program immediately. SG1 tries to argue that these are people that have rights and can't just be taken by different programs to be done with as they want. And Hammond does manage to buy them a little bit of time, arguing that they haven't been through quarantine yet, and the president would surely not want to be risking any disease. And Mayborn's like, well, I have the full authority of the president. And Hammond's like, so do I. And it kind of felt like they were just going to start unzipping their pants next for some size comparison. To me, anyway. As they're having this little one-upsmanship argument here. So, long story short, Mayborn's like, well, all right, fine, I'll just wait here until they're done with their quarantine. And this part actually was kind of funny because Hammond's like, that wasn't an invitation, that was an order. Looks down at his bars and then adds, Colonel. Because obviously Hammond is much higher ranking. And Mayborn's kind of pissed off about that, but leaves the room anyway. And then Jack's like, didn't Dr. Fraser say they're all fine? And Hammond's like, well, yeah, but he doesn't need to know that. But then he also says that at best he bought them like another day.
Da, da, da. Surprise, surprise, Narim and Sam are chatting again. Spending a lot of time together, those two.
They are.
Yeah. And Sam is explaining that he shouldn't ask for asylum now because that will just give him to Mayborn, basically, to do with what he will. And Narim finds this a confirmation that Omoc is right. And then Sam's like, it's not us, it's another part of our government, which, here we go, ha ha ha. Why is SG1 being so naive about this government of theirs? And we would totally use this tech to make war with the Goa'uld if it existed and we could get our hands on it. And also anyone else on Earth we might find to be a problem.
Right. Yeah, they're being a little bit naively idealistic.
And I'm saying we as a person of the United States, but
yes, as a
even
whole
fictional version of it.
Yeah.
She also says they're that part of the government specializes in chronic paranoia. That just makes me sad about the world in general right now.
Yeah.
Sam wants Narim to convince Omoc to take up their offer of one of the other planets who have wanted to be hosts, and Narim doesn't think that's a good idea because they were all less advanced, and as he said, I think Sarita can happen anywhere. And I think he called them primitive again.
Yeah.
Which Sam took offense to.
Yes.
Unsurprisingly.
Right.
And Narim was like, I'm so sorry, I only meant technologically. And then he says that she's not primitive at all, and what your mind doesn't know, your heart fills in. Sam doesn't know what that means, and neither do I.
But she thought it was beautiful.
She did think it was beautiful. I just thought it was bullshit.
And too.
And Nareem's like, which is exactly what it means. Which is
Yeah,
more BS.
Cringy scene.
So yeah, Sam, what he's saying is you're a dummy, but you're pretty. So
yeah. So it's okay. Yeah. Pat on the head. Yep. Yeah. Back in the meeting room, Daniel and Mayborn are looking through a window and basically spying on Hammond as he talks into his red phone. And they're talking about what Mayborn hopes to get from the Tollan, which is, of course, superior weapons, not to anyone's surprise. And Jack tells Mayborn that they're not going to help you. Hammond comes out and really likes to brag that he's been talking to the president. So,
of course he does.
He, of course, is like, I just got off the phone with the president. Mayborn apparently does have permission to relocate the Tollan immediately, despite Hammond's arguing. And Mayborn says that he's going to be taking them to a secure community in the Rockies, trying to make it sound much nicer than it will probably be in real life. And SG1 basically calls his bullshit on that and says that the community that he's talking about is going to be surrounded by barbed wire and they're all going to be forced into intellectual labor, essentially, and will be prisoners for life in this lovely community in the Rockies. And Mayborn tries to argue that they'll have a better life than most Americans and they're going to have a good view and tasty food. Daniel's like, I can understand intelligence in the Pentagon doing this, but the president? I voted for him.
Oh, Daniel. Daniel.
Yep. Yeah. So Mayborn tells him to have the Tollan ready for transport at 0600 tomorrow.
So Hammond is feeling a little rivalry, right, with Mayborn over his relationship with the president.
Clearly jealous, yeah.
I mean, first he's rebuffed in his friendship offer to Omoc, and now he's got to worry about his standing with his BFF.
Right. Yeah. Mayborn's clearly trying to put a wedge in between that BFF friendship there, or that BFF relationship there.
It's very sad. Poor Hammond.
Hard to be Hammond, not knowing what's going on at your job, and then having your best friend relationship be on ice. It's tough.
But don't worry, they're gonna plot to stick it to Mayborn.
They are.
So Hammond walks out of that little exit in the middle of nowhere to talk to SG1 about without Mayborn's presence, excuse me, which I'm not sure outside is any less obvious than just finding a random room they could shut themselves in somewhere inside.
Because there's still guards standing right there by the door.
Oh,
So
where'd the general go? Where's SG1? What are they doing outside?
outside,
Oh, we're just enjoying the scenery, taking a little break.
some fresh air
Yeah.
by the vehicles here.
Yeah. So trying to figure out what they can do to help the Tollans escape. And Hammond says, we'll all be court-martialed, and Jack's like, I barely care. But then they say that Daniel can't be court-martialed, which but my
Ooh.
response is, but what about some other kind of crime he's doing right now? Just because he
Right.
can't be court-martialed doesn't mean he can't be arrested for something.
True. They kind of address that later and brush it under the rug, which in a way that I won't spoil, but
Yeah, because I also think that's bullshit, but
I agree.
yeah. Back in the refugee room, Omoc is complaining that Mayborn wants them to undergo some testing. And Daniel says he's trying to protect them from Mayborn, and Omoc is like, do you have somewhere for us to go? And Daniel's like, no. Omoc's like, I have nothing else to say. Again.
Yeah, he's very helpful in all of this.
But then Daniel's like, actually, though, I do know a place you could go, but I don't know how to get you there. But maybe you have the technology. Omoc is suspicious that they are still attempting to steal their technology. But Daniel explains that no. We went to this place once with these people called the Nox, and that they felt the same way you do about us. So they locked the door behind when we left, and we don't know how to get back there. Daniel has the coordinates to the planet, and Omoc, seems like Omoc might know how to do this, so but he needs to go back to the mountaintop where they escaped to before in order to execute this plan. And Daniel's like, wah, I can't get you out. Omoc's like, not a problem. And then Daniel says he has to go with them, which I'm not sure I understand why Daniel has to go with them for this part.
Probably just to keep an eye on him,
I guess.
I would guess. To say that he was with them and so that they're not, like, on their own.
I guess, but then if they just escape on their own, it avoids the entire problem of possible arrest and court-martial.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so Daniel's like, I gotta go with you. Omoc tells Daniel to give him your hand, and Daniel's like, what? He's like, do you want to come? So Daniel holds his hand as Omoc pushes some buttons on his cocks, which I guess is the singular of that. Coxes, so Omoc pushes the button on his cocks. For some reason, they still have them, even though they know they can walk through walls. But anyway, it works out because the wall gets all wavy and he walks through, and Daniel, again, as Daniel does, takes a moment to sort of like marvel at it, but then Omoc yanks him through.
And then they're outside. And they're taking a nice little outdoor nighttime hike. Omoc asks Daniel for the coordinates again and takes out a device that he puts on the ground and pushes a couple buttons, and a light beam is sent off into space. And, like, I don't know how this could have been any kind of a message, but apparently it's supposed to be a message. But, like, he pushed 2 buttons and sent a light beam.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, there was no time to program anything in, like to program the coordinates in, no time to program in like the coordinates for where they are or what they want. So I guess he was just using some mental telepathy to compose his message before he sent it off in light beam form.
I guess so. These are some pretty magical devices.
They are, yeah. And Daniel says that he's not an astronomer, but he does point out that this is a light beam that they just sent, and that at the rate of light, that it would take thousands of years to reach the Nox. And Omoc's like, well, why would it take so long? And as we just said, light takes time to travel places, so Daniel mentions that fact, and Omoc picks up a stick and gives Daniel a little elementary physics lesson, points to the two ends of it and says that this would seem really far until you do this, and he bends the stick and puts the 2 points together. Has a cute little mischievous look on his face, which is like the first time we see him not scowling for the entire episode. And Daniel's like, "Oh, I remember this from college. You're talking about folding space." And Omoc looks really disappointed and is like, "No, you wouldn't understand." And so Daniel's like, "Well, let's hope the Nox do." And then again, we have a shot of them like just staring off for a few seconds before the end of the scene.
Poor Omoc having to deal with these dum-dums.
Yes. It's hard.
They're in the control room. Sam is at the computer typing things. Narim's voice seems to come out of nowhere. He's announcing himself, though, and then walks through the wall into the room.
I was wondering how he did that. Like, how did he just throw his voice into the room? Does your voice travel through the wall too? Like, had he already like squishified the wall and then just started talking through it?
Maybe?
I guess.
Sure. Sam is very impressed with his wall walking and wants to know how it's done. And Narim says, "Very carefully."
Oh.
So he's there to say goodbye because they're going to be leaving soon either way, either with Mayborn or some other way. And he's going to miss Sam and be real sad about it. And Sam says that you'll forget about me, trying to comfort him. And then Narim gives her one of his coxes, which is apparently an emotion recording device that he's worn each time they were together. What's the point of an emotion recording device? I don't know. I'm sure it has
let her feel exactly what he felt.
I guess so, because that's what happens. So he tells her to touch his red triangle and close her eyes. And then she can feel his feelings for reasons.
Yep.
Sam doesn't know what to say, she says. So Narim kisses her, which is their custom.
It's their custom.
Yeah. Sam's like, "That's our custom too." So they kiss again, and Daniel runs in. "Oopsie," he says.
Whoops.
He's got to do some stuff in here and he needs Sam's help. So I guess this is the end of their romance. And Sam tells Narim to get going and to take the cat with him.
Yes.
Which
hopefully this new planet will be amenable to
cat
life.
Yeah. So she just gave somebody who has literally never seen an animal before an animal to take care of.
Yeah. With no idea what it needs in order to have a happy cat life or how to keep it a healthy cat.
Good luck, Narim. Enjoy Schrodinger.
Yep. As it knocks all your shit off your counter.
Jack would have brought him a dog.
It's true. Dogs are better. So later on, Hammond and Mayborn are talking about transporting the Tollan, and the random lady comes in again and says that the fugitives are gone. And Mayborn gets all angry and is like, "What do you mean?" And the lady is like poof. And she explains that they did try to keep them in the room as they were told, but even though she stood in the path herself, they just walked right through her. And then we get the sound of an unknown activation at the gate. In the control room, they're talking about how all the security measures are failing and the iris has been opened by whoever it is on the other side. The blast door is down, so they can't really see what's going on down in the gate room, but when it is raised, we see all of the Tollan and Daniel standing at the base of the ramp. The gate is dialing out, but it's not dialing out using the normal computer controls that they would use for like a typical mission. And they've basically been locked out of the system. And Mayborn starts freaking out and talking about how it's a court-martialable offense that is happening down there in the gate room, since it's pretty apparent that Daniel's trying to help all the Tollan out. But Jack reminds him that Daniel isn't military and so cannot be court-martialed.
Checkmate, Mayborn.
Yes. And he also says that it would be pretty tough to find a civilian law to cover what is happening, but like we were saying earlier, like you'd think there'd still be some kind of punishment, at least even within the military or somewhere that could happen.
I am
for this,
sure they could
whatever.
think of something to charge him with.
Yeah. Mayborn says through the microphone that he will have Daniel removed from the program forever if he does this, which, spoiler alert, that does not happen. Mayborn says that wherever they send the Tollan, he's going to hunt them down, but Sam says, well, we're not sending them anywhere. The gate's being dialed from off-world, so they're being sent for. And Mayborn, of course, wants to know who would possibly be sending for the Tollan, and then the Lady Nox comes through the now open gate and greets them all, and the gate closes.
Woo!
Oh, indeed. Mayborn is still trying to assert his authority here and is talking about how he's got his presidential order to take the aliens with them and don't let anyone pass, and tells all the guards down in the room to use force if necessary. So all the military peeps down in the gate room draw their weapons on the Tollan. And Laia looks around very disappointed and says, your race has learned nothing, but you have. But like, how much did she expect all of humankind as a race to have learned in the few weeks since we found out who the Nox are?
It does seem a little bit rushed, but
yeah. So she introduces herself to the Tollan and asks them to come and join her and the rest of the Nox on their planet. And that seems to be pretty agreeable to Omoc.
Woohoo! Finally. Jeez, Omoc, so picky.
He is. He comes up the ramp and tells Daniel that Narim was right about him and says that perhaps they'll meet again. So thankfully, we've already learned that there's that precedent for ignoring orders, because all of the Tollan start heading up the ramp at this point, and even though they've been told to fire, the guards do not actually fire on the Tollan as they're trying to leave. Mayborn continues to try to yell at them, though, to stop, and says that he's going to have them open fire. But as soon as he makes these threats, the guards lift their weapons and do take a step forward. However, in just a second, there are no people there for them to fire on, because Laia has used her mental power to reopen the gate and to make the Tollan disappear.
Yep, she's badass, pretty powerful.
Yeah, she is. And so Mayborn tells them to fire, even though there's now nobody there for them to fire on except for Laia and Daniel. Pew, pew. And so she makes their weapons disappear too.
Yep.
And Jack's like, God, I love those people. So we continue to look at the gate for a minute, and then it closes after everyone has gone through, and Mayborn is very unhappily, angrily storms off in a huff.
Aww.
And Hammond and Sam and Jack go down to the gate room and join Daniel, and apparently Teal'c was already down there too, because he comes walking up from the corner.
Yeah, he was just kind of hanging out in the background through the whole thing.
I guess he can't really be court-martialed either, so.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Why didn't he have to hold Omoc's hand and go through the wall too?
Right? Yeah. And like, why did they actually really need Teal'c or Daniel to be down there anyway? They didn't actually need to be involved in this in any way, because it was all Laia doing all the gate opening and whatever.
Yep.
So Jack tells Daniel that he did good, and Teal'c asks what's going on with Mayborn, and Sam says that he's a pretty unhappy camper, and it's going to be hell to pay when he gets back to Washington, according to Hammond. Jack notices that Daniel's got a strange look on his face and asks what he's thinking, and Daniel's like, oh, I was just thinking about a guy with funny hair. The very young do not always do as they're told. Aww. So now we have now ended 2 episodes with that saying, which makes me think that every once in a random while we should end the podcast with that instead of saying the end.
I mean, we should.
So did you like the episode, Kathy?
Despite all of my tangents and Daniel being super wrong and the nonsensical way he had to go with them at the end, I enjoyed the episode. Again, it's one of those episodes where the perspective of the SG team is not necessarily the correct one, in the sense that they don't understand why the Tollan are so reticent to open up to them, but they're kind of right about that, especially given the fact that they're one group of people on a planet of billions who would all really love to have a bunch of technology that could kill one another, and more of it than we already have. I continue to like that. Like these are our heroes, but they're also not always right and don't understand what's going on.
Right.
And I like the kitty. I hope he has a good life on another planet with his new friend, Narim.
It was a cute kitty.
And Narim seemed okay. I don't know. So, I don't know, that was a very vague. Yeah, but I liked it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I liked it too, for the most part. I was in a really bad mood watching the first 3/4 of it, for many reasons
Yeah.
already addressed. And also, I kept getting interrupted while I was watching it, so I was getting annoyed because, like, I kept getting all these text messages and stuff I needed to respond to, which is why I ended up giving up, because I was just getting too many messages coming through from various places that I needed to address. So I was really stressed out during the first 3/4, which made it hard to enjoy. But when I did finally get around to watching the rest of it, I did enjoy it. So I thought it was a pretty entertaining episode for the most part. And as annoying as Omoc was, it did feel like it was kind of understandable when we figure out eventually why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
So what's next?
Oh, right. Sorry. Next. I will go quick. Sorry. I'm doing Netflix because I already looked at the descriptions in other places and they were all very spoilery. So let me. So next up is the episode Solitudes. A Stargate malfunction leaves O'Neill and Carter stranded in an icy crevasse on an unknown planet.
Ooh.
I actually quite remember this episode, so
I don't think I do.
So I won't say nothing then. Let you enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, as always, thank you for listening. And if you need to get in touch with us, you can reach us by email at stargatezing@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at Stargatezing. You can find us on Facebook. We have a page and a group if you would like to like the page or join the group. You can find us on Patreon. We're patreon.com/stargatezing, and donations are always appreciated if you're feeling generous over there. Our website is stargatezing.space. And if you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button on whatever podcatcher of choice you happen to be listening to, or you can also find our episodes on YouTube, and any likes or reviews are greatly appreciated. I am Mary.
I'm Kathy.
You've been listening to Stargatezing. The very young do not always do as they're told.
Indeed, the very young do not always do as they're told. Some guy laying in the ash opens his eyes and some guy good luck to you with this one.